Obviously, extraordinary circumstances that we're living through right now. Lots of people are using GMB as a primary sort of platform for reaching their customers and updating them around. They're obviously kind of opening hours, when they're available sort of online. Maybe from the flip side of things, what's your take on how Google is affected by COVID, and how is that impacting their ability to service the local community through GMB?
Oh, yeah, great question. So Google was not set up to handle a pandemic of this magnitude. So as we know, Google has a lot of different call centers throughout the world. So trying to switch a bunch of employees to working out of their home with logistical nightmares such as phones and internet connections. When you've got people in India and the Philippines and they get hit with, bad hurricanes and bad weather, or they don't have the infrastructure, it's hard to have a lot of support now, in their house. So, and then there's also the component where Google needs to, keep a close eye and watch on what data is being accessed and shared, and who can have access to certain pieces of data. So it's not a thing where Google's going to want to have somebody that could have access to data that could inadvertently expose something that they're not supposed to. So so Google's going to keep everything private and guarded, even with a Project Experts program. They don't always share stuff with us, or we're under NDAs that we can't readily share. That being said, we're definitely seeing, limitations when it comes to Google My Business right now. So, people are trying to update and edit their information. Google has pretty much put a block on that. So we're just seeing really larger than normal delay times with trying to update your business information if it's outside of hours. There was a whole kerfuddle with Google going in and marking businesses as temporarily closed when they weren't, because they were pulling data from crowdsourcing and from the government, and not letting the business owners go in there and update that information. And then there's problems with turning your hours on or unmarking yourself as temporarily closed. We're seeing massive delays with people trying to get new business listings verified as well. So Google's pretty much putting all their eggs in one basket for the health and wellness space, because anything that's going to, directly impact somebody trying to get information for, do I have COVID-19? How can I get testing? What information do I need? So that's where Google's primarily putting their information on. And because of that, they've got a lot of limitations on what they can do support-wise, which is why they're only offering email support. Social support was turned off a couple of weeks ago. So, we're definitely seeing, massive effects. The GMB forums has basically exploded with everybody, coming with questions, and it's everything that I just said. Why is my business listing not verified? Why are my edits not being approved? Where's my reviews? When are reviews coming back? Are reviews going to come back? So.
Okay, so in summary then, Google doesn't have the ability or the desire to allow its support team to work from home for very kind of data security, or for just the general facility to do that. It's either shrunk that team down, or it's kind of brought it in-house, which has created a huge bottleneck. So any kind of update requests, or new listings, or reviews going through, are basically just being bunched up together and being seen to, but at a much slower pace, but with a prioritization for medical related businesses, due to the importance of that information being kept up-to-date and fresh for the society.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the kind of current state of play? I know we've got a question around reviews specifically. And do we expect that things will move through the pipe, or is Google just going to basically, will some of it just never ever make it into the real world, or is it just going to be delayed?
Yeah, some of that's going to be definitely NDA. Google did, state on their COVID-19 link that they did have plans to release all those reviews. And then when they made the latest update on on April 10th, where they stated that reviews were now being accepted, on a limited basis, they removed the location, the descriptor that said we are going to be publishing reviews. So there is definitely a lot of ambiguity of what happened with reviews that were posted between March 20th and when reviews get turned on for each and every single location. So we're still trying to figure out, what's going on with Google. They haven't publicly stated anything. So, it's too hard to say. But right now, for a majority of businesses worldwide, Google has shut off the ability for new reviews to be posted. So unfortunately, it's a wait and see approach. My suggestion is test your listing by posting a review and then checking it incognito, or when you're not logged into Google, see if that review shows up. If that review shows up, then your business can get new reviews, and then yes, you can go ahead and move forward with your review solicitation. But if your review doesn't show up, then hold off and wait, because there really is no point in getting reviews right now if you can't get them. And also, if you can't get them, your competitors aren't getting them as well.
But even if those reviews will be released at some point, you expect, so there'll just be a backlog of it?
Yeah, that's what remains to be seen. We're still waiting for that official statement from Google stating, what's going to happen with those reviews. So we're in the same boat as everybody else. We're waiting to see what Google does.
Okay. Does that mean you're kind of temporarily kind of dialing back your kind of reputation management activity around Google, or are you diverting it to other sites?
Yeah, no, we'll definitely, keep diverting to other sites. I mean, yes, Google's the big one, but we have review solicitation management services turned on, so we know once reviews come in. So we're getting email alerts, because of partners that we work with. So we know when reviews are coming in. We're also doing a lot of testing. So myself, I've gone in and done a bunch of testing, but yeah, we're going to continue to try and get reviews and other avenues and services, because just because one tactic shut off doesn't mean we can't use other tactics to get reviews, or sure. Or even better, first party reviews are even better than trying to go after a third party.
Yeah, so it's not a total whitewash. It's just the fact that Google, you're maybe able to divert some of that resource and attention into other sites. So I've lost your video, by the way, Jason. Hopefully you can still hear me.
Yep, I got you.
Okay, fine. I'm just seeing your Jason seal of approval badge. I love the fact that you have your own little emoji for yourself. But so listen, let's jump in and let's just get kind of questions first. So the top question's got 4 upvotes. So it's not so much a COVID-19 question, but is there a better way to manage multiple GMB messages than via the app? The app is so clunky and the notifications don't work properly. I have got 31 locations. I need to respond to customers who request a quote, and I often miss a lot of them. Go for it, Jace. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the GMB app is super clunky. It doesn't work if you own multiple locations, because they want you to install that app, per location. So as much as I really don't want to, recommend other services, the only people that I know that actually can do that is Podium. And that's because, Podium was VC funded by Google. So they're the only ones that I know that you can actually use their services for messaging in bulk.
Okay, fine. Yeah, that's got a big kind of product, isn't it? Sort of Podium. I hear they got some additional funding last week. Okay, so that's the only platform that you use, but you haven't used it personally. Have you had a look under the hood of it?
I did, of course, I had to, investigate it, a couple of years ago for my boss, and because we were trying to figure some stuff out, and we basically just decided, we didn't really want to, move into, that space. It wasn't worth it for the price point that they wanted to offer. Okay. So it's definitely costs a lot of money to use, and you can't break stuff up like a la carte like some platforms.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they don't expose their pricing. Do you get a sense of what their pricing is?
Oh goodness, it's been a couple of years since I looked into it, so I wouldn't have anything current.
Okay. Yeah, they don't publicize their kind of pricing on their site. Okay. So then beyond Podium, what's your kind of advice then to kind of customers who are in this situation? Is it just like either pay the money or deal with the clunkiness?
Yeah, I would pay the money in a heartbeat, just because we keep hearing on the forum, like a lot of users are having issues where they're getting notified of a message. They go into the app, they can't find it, it's disappearing, so you'll get an email notification, but then you can't go and check it and track it. So there's so many issues. If you are, a single location, then it makes sense. But once you start, having multiple locations, that's where Google doesn't really have like the best support for franchises. And that's kind of been one of my biggest pain points, working with multi-location franchises. When you have 500 locations, you need something that's going to work. And Google's just kind of like, well, we only want to deal with like, one-offs. And so, it's a very, frustrating thing. With anything, you got to figure out what you need and what solution is going to work best for you, and is it going to fit your needs and your price.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Jason. Let's go on to the next question. For a business that's 2-year-old, it's a pure SAB, but the customer's always had their address listed. Should they be wary of removing it?
So right now you're not going to be able to, remove your address. It's going to go into a pending review status. So it could take time to get updated. You're also going to lose your ranking value of having your address shown once you move it over to a pure SAB. Honestly, and this is going to be the Joy Hawkins answer. If Google's not penalizing you right now, then don't do it. Me being the spam fighter, I'm going to sit there and say, you're going to run the risk of a competitor reporting you and having your listing suspended. Or if Google, somehow finds out that it's a residential address, you run the risk of being suspended. And, if you got suspended today with the current way Google is running, it could take you a few weeks to get reinstated. So I would say leave it, but know in the back of your mind, there's that potential for that listing to end up getting suspended. And then you're going to have to change it to a pure SAB and file for reinstatement.
Fine. Okay. So you're kind of offsetting the sort of future risk for, the kind of current term benefits of the ranking value and, other things that kind of go with that, not rocking the boat essentially, but you run the risk in time of Google being made aware and they're suspending your listing. And if we imagine we're kind of post-COVID, we're back to some sort of normality. What is the typical sort of suspension time frame from when you take the action to correct to when kind of Google unsuspends? What would you expect the time frame to be?
Time frame should be within a 1 to 2 week time frame. But, as we noticed last June, there was, a major delay, and we were seeing, timeframes of anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, when the Wall Street Journal article came out. So it all depends, like, what happened. If it was just, normal circumstances, you're going to look at a 1 to 2 week time frame. But if you have something like, another COVID hit or, massive suspensions, then there's going to be a delay when there's more, demand on the system. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So hopefully gives a bit of understanding of it's a balance of the risk, it's kind of going like, will I get caught? If not, kind of keep doing it until I guess you are caught, and hopefully that you'll be doing that for a couple of years, get all the benefits of that, and then you're going to kind of quick turn around on the suspension. Probably not Google's official guidelines and response, but they've created the problem. So we got to play with the rules they've set with us. Okay. Next question comes from Dilkash. Thanks for this, Dilkash. I'll read this out. It's quite long. Let me read it out to you because I'm in the real estate business. I manage around 30 listings. Some of our projects are in quite remote locations, so the postcards don't reach us here. We have to wait 14 days and then raise a request with the GMB team. Are there any alternative verification modes that you might recommend?
You would have to go through, there's a link to the verification process that you can contact Google when you are trying to, get listings set up or you don't have a physical address, for building out. But I mean, here's the thing. If you have already 31 locations, then I would apply for a bulk verified account. In order to get a bulk verified account, you have to be added as an owner of a minimum of 10 locations. You have to have all locations with the same naming, and they all need to be in your dashboard, and you need to have all those addresses listed on one website that Google can go and check. Apply for bulk verification, and then you won't have to worry about doing the pinned postcards, because then you'll be able to, automatically create listings, and then you'll be able to use the feature open dates, so that way you can have a listing, verified, but then stating that they're not going to open until September of 2020 or December of 2020. So that would be the route that I would go. But I mean, and then when it comes to duplications, duplicate listings, I would make sure that you're pushing out communication to everybody that's affiliated with your brand. Hey, don't create listings. We're going to go ahead and create them because we have a streamlined process to do it. And when you go and you create, duplicate listings, we run into all sorts of issues because, working with a franchise, we've seen issues where we've had other partners go in, create a listing, and then next thing you know, the listing that we've had with all that history, the reviews, the photos, the posts, etc., gets marked as a duplicate, and then Google ends up showing, a listing that's got no activity and nothing on it. And then you've got to go and start all over from scratch. And the only thing you can move over when you get marked as a duplicate is your reviews. So they're not going to take the posts or the photos and move them to the other listing, because those are all associated specifically with that one listing ID.
Okay, so they can't migrate any of that other kind of richer kind of content and information you might provide. It's just the reviews that they can kind of move across.
Correct.
And is that a limitation in their functionality, or is that the way is that a sort of a process policy that they put and how they see it work?
It's the way that the content gets added. So when the content gets added, it gets added directly to that dashboard account ID and not to the CID like the reviews do. So when it comes to the user generated stuff, then that gets associated with with that listing. But when it's activity that the managers and owners have done, it goes specifically just to that location. I tried, because we had quite a few issues where we had some really great, history and rankings on some GMBs, and Google was just like, no, we can't do that. And you can't even export it because it's all associated with that account that's now defunct.
What about Q&As?
I would have to double check on that one. I'm not familiar with if the Q&As can get moved over. I know the reviews can.
Yeah, so I guess that's partly it's a kind of partly UGC, but then also the response comes from the business. So it's kind of got to fit in both camps there, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. And as we noticed with COVID-19, Google took out Q&As completely. So it's Q&As is kind of like a new weird nuance as to where does it truly sit and lie.
Yeah. Okay. With the bulk verification and getting that status approved for you, how long does that take once you apply to be the owner and have bulk verification? How long does Google usually take? And is that currently prone to the same delays as everything else right now?
Yeah, I'm going to say that that's definitely going to be on a back burner if it's not health related. It depends. Each case is different and unique. If you have all your ducks in a row and you've done what I've specifically said, you've got all your locations loaded, they're all the same name, you're using an account with the business's domain. So say it's Myles@BrightLocal.com, and it's all BrightLocal locations all throughout the world, then it's going to be a much smoother process, especially if you have the locations on there. If you're missing pieces and components and they can't verify that those locations are live, or you have 3,000 locations, well, there's going to be a larger delay than with just spot checking 30 locations, because they're going to go and do their due diligence and make sure that the businesses are legit, they're registered, that they're visible on Street View, etc. So I would say you're looking at a minimum of 3 weeks to a couple months, depending on if you don't have all your ducks in a row.
And if you took on a client that had, let's say, 200 locations, would your process and policy be to get all 200 set up, or would you go down to let's get 10 set up, let's essentially get above that account status borderline, get the approval, and then put the rest in after that?
No, they're not going to move forward if you don't have all the locations in there. So you have to have each and every single location that is live and open in that account. So if you're going to try and like piecemeal and pull them in, Google's going to just say, no, that's not going to happen. And, it's really chunky. It's clunky to do. So as long as you could be added as a manager to 190 and you have ownership access to those 10, you'll be good to go. So you don't have to be an owner for all 200. You just have to be added as some form of user to those accounts.
Oh, okay, fine. So you can have split responsibilities across the 200.
Correct.
Yeah, fine. Okay. All right, brilliant. Thanks, Jason. Let's move on. The next question down is does the GMB, I guess, sort of the kind of attributes and features within GMB, what impact do they have on local ranking? Specifically, do you see any impact in terms of what services are added in and the wording within the description? And does that have any material boost or negative impacts on where you might rank?
Yeah, we actually did a couple studies on that at Sterling Sky. The study was completely inconclusive. We found, quick little wins of, spikes in rankings, but they did not completely materialize. So I hope I'm quoting that survey correctly. I know either Joy or Colin or Carrie are going to post a link to that one. But yeah, they definitely did a lot more research into that. But yeah, you're not going to really see much a ranking with attributes and services at this point in time.
So how do you kind of think about them conceptually when you're kind of working with a customer? Is it all about kind of conversion as a conversion point?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be about conversion. It's going to be, well, what are you trying to truly convey to your customers? Like, what information is going to be the most valuable? Like, that's all that information that you're going to want on your website, and that's what you're going to want on your GMB. So whether you're going to be adding that same information as your Q&As, like what services do you offer, and then go in and you answer that, you want to make sure that you are answering questions that are going to be, valuable and relevant. Like, do you want to go and be a retailer and just bulk upload all of your products onto GMB? Well, no, that's just going to be really convoluted to do. But if you have some, important items that you really want on there, say you're selling, N95 masks. Well, that's going to be something you're going to want on there. Are you selling, hand sanitizers? Whatever is, the most important thing, that's what I would focus on, So when we're, working with, the beauty industry, and they were doing eyelash extensions, it's like, okay, well, you definitely want to let people know the different styles of eyelashes you have and, and give a description on it, not just, say, well, we have 2D, 3D, and 4D lashes, because that doesn't really explain what it is. But if you can give, valuable intel information, then that's what you really truly want to have on there. Don't just, think that you're just going to upload everything to Google and then automatically you're just going to rank for everything, because that's just, not going to work.
Okay. You know a lot about eyelashes, Jason. I didn't realize that. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay. Next question comes from Naomi. She says, okay, so this is a kind of franchise kind of related kind of question. The franchise owner has a service-based business in one location. The kind of corporate entity of the franchise business is registered GMB for all their locations via Yext. It says using a PO box for a physical location, which sounds a little unusual. The franchise owner wants to take over the ownership of that particular GMB listing and online directories and take it away from Yext. So essentially, corporate's gone out, sort of, agreement with Yext, got all their kind of listings and GMB through that. One franchise owner wants to kind of rescind that and take that back. What are the best steps to begin the kind of process? They actually don't control the Yext account. What would your advice be?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to say you're going to be out of luck on this one, because here's the harsh reality. The corporation actually owns the business and all its entities. So franchise owner, while they have bought into that model, they're still controlled by the brand. And as far as Google is concerned, that listing actually belongs to the brand. So we've actually had issues where we had to have disputes with some franchise owners, and we had Google go in, and they actually had to go in and unverify the listing because the franchise owner wasn't playing ball. And it was a court deal. And so Google went in and suspended the listings and allowed us to go in there and claim the listings with our brand account. So when it comes to that, the brand owns it. And also the other thing is you've got to check with the context of the contract, because different franchises will set different rules. So they're gonna limit what you can and can't do. So some franchises aren't going to allow you to have like your own standalone microsites. So that'll be in direct violation of corporate policies. There's also certain terms and language that you can't use as a franchisee that corporate's not going to allow. And again, when it comes to Yext is going to side directly with their partner. And since the corporate's got that whole account with them, there's no way to go in there and get that account turned off or get it killed. So the franchisee would have to talk directly with corporate to try to figure out, okay, what's going to be the best solution. If they are running a PO box for that location, then there shouldn't be an address showing, because Google's going to end up suspending it. And I've seen a lot of franchises that have gotten suspended because they were not marking themselves as SABs. They were using fake addresses or PO boxes, and so it just becomes this whole convoluted issue.
Okay, that's a really kind of detailed response, Jason. You obviously encountered that issue or those kind of discussions before, so I hope that's really helpful for you, Naomi. Okay, next question. This comes from, I have to hover over. This comes from Lewis. It says, I want to create an additional GMB for a new division or extension. Sorry, it's just jumped around my screen. Lost it now. Got it back. I want to create an additional GMB for a new division or extension of my existing business. The new GMB will use the same address, same website, and I guess running a different kind of product or service through it. It says, although I can use a different website page rather than the home page, I guess a service-related page rather than the home page. I can also use a different email if needed and a different phone number, but it is not per se a new business. So he hasn't told us what type of business this is, but let's just say it's I don't know. I guess many types of businesses have got this kind of scenario, right, where they're wanting to it could be a lawyer branching out to kind of a new area. It could be an HVAC a sort of professional doing sort of plumbing as well, right through to guess kind of car sort of showrooms providing sales and service and different sort of brands. What's your take on that? And either feel free to tackle that industry by industry or sector by sector, or as a general answer.
Yeah, so I'll tackle this one, and then I'll tackle that other one about the handyman pool cleaner as well, because they're going to be directly related. So in order to have a separate Google My Business listing, you have to have a completely separate registered business with its own address and its own signage. So if it is one address with one main entrance and one sign that's for Myles garage door, and then you're trying to cram in Myles lock and key, and then Myles quick plumbing, then you're going to run into a lot of issues, and you're going to end up getting suspended for having that duplicate listing. And especially right now, Google's not really going to allow new listings to get created. So they're going to put a lot more scrutiny on new listings to make sure that they're actually legit. So it's going to be a lot harder to try and create new listings, but you have to make sure that you're registered, you have a separate address, a separate entrance and signage. Otherwise, no matter what you try and do, create a new GMB account, add them into that same GMB account, separate the website, build a whole new website. Google's just going to look at that one main address and ding you on it. And there was a case on the forum where somebody got registered, got their listing verified a year ago, and they're sharing a space with like 7 other businesses at a chiropractor. And so Google came in and suspended them, and they're kind of flipping out right now. I'm like, well, why did Google allow me to get verified a year ago just so they could come in and suspend me? It's not fair, and this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, you got verified because you had a PIN postcard mailed. So you said, you went through the verification process, but Google, the verification process doesn't mean you're deemed legitimate by Google, because they'll still do checks and balances, and they do it all the time. They'll suspend a listing overnight. It could be somebody reporting them through suggest and edit, through the redressal. It could be Google doing checks and balances. It's really hard to say, how Google, finds stuff, but they will find it eventually, if that helps.
Okay. And so if a business, would you ever advise a business that if this new service is really important to them, and, they were in it for kind of long term, would you say, okay, set up as a separate entity then, and sort of deal with the administration sort of side of that, then create the additional signage so that actually you've got this legitimate physical entity in the business and there's legitimate sort of physical signage that you can show to Google that you exist and that you are related but separate.
Correct. Yeah, I would go through register for an LLC for each and every single entity that you want, and make sure that you have, the proper signage. Because, if Google comes in and they're like, well, there's no signage, then they're going to start doing some extra checks and balances on that listing to see if, you're legitimate. And I can't get into, all the details of what they do, but I do know they do a pretty good extensive check when they're, checking out to make sure if a business is legitimate or not. So, and it could be one of those things where, let's say it's, air conditioning and heating. So right now, if the weather is really cold, then you want to focus on, on heating. But as we're starting to move into spring and the weather's starting to get better, well, then that's when you'd want to change your primary category to AC, right? And then set your heating as your secondary. Because now you want to make sure that you're going to be ranking for those air conditioning terms. And I'm going to give a shout out to Joy Hawkins, because this is in one of her presentations from, a local U a few years back. And that's basically what it is what is going to cause you to get the most amount of traffic right now? Is it going to be those nuanced categories? Is it going to be a category that people are searching for right now? So, judge it that way. I looked at a business listing a year ago, and they were doing tattoo removal and hair removal. And, they wanted to rank for both. And I said, well, what gets you the most traffic and the most money? And what's the most popular right now? They're like, well, the hair removal. And I said, well, change your primary category to laser hair removal and set tattoo removal as your secondary. And you're going to, get all those rankings with, the local pack. And so I'm not even sure if they even did it, but that was kind of my advice. It's like, figure out what's going to get you the most bang for your buck and go there.
Okay. And are there any negative impacts of doing that? For example, if you did that too frequently, does kind of Google see that as a sign of some spam or irregular activity, and could that cause a suspension or something?
Yeah, it could definitely lead to a suspension if you're, trying to jam, 27 listings into one location. But I mean, it's so nuanced right now because of the whole, co-working spaces, and the Regises and the WeWorks, where all of a sudden you'll see, 27 lawyers all in the same building. If your categories are so similarly related, then you have to worry about the possum update where you're going to actually be filtered out. And so Google's not going to, show, because Google can't show each and every single business that's, in that area. And you're also not going to notice that you're not going to have the place labels show up as well, right? Because Google doesn't want to, overpopulate our map with a bunch of paste labels and marker pins. So that's why, you'll see when you're zooming in and out on a map, you'll see a business name show up and then disappear and then reappear. So, you got to think you have to think about it as, how do I think Google's going to treat my business? Are they going to show 27 locations all at one address for users to come and find, or is something going to get filtered out? And you do run that risk of the suspension. And honestly, right now with the way suspensions are going, we're seeing a lot of account level suspensions where Google is just taking one user and black flagging it or blacklisting it, and then all of a sudden every business that they're associated with gets suspended overnight. And that's been happening since I think last June, but we've been seeing a definite uptick. I think there was a couple other cases earlier this week too of that exact same thing happening. So You definitely want to be very careful with messing with Google, because when they come in and they crack that whip, it is it's severe, and it's really hard to get back in their good graces.
I've got a question for you. In terms of that kind of account level, we'll go to the question. With the account level suspension, obviously there are different statuses. You could be an account owner, you could be a manager. Would both types of listings be affected? If the user kind of contravenes the rules in one place, or is it only on the ones that you're an account owner on?
No, it's going to be any level that you're added. So you could add somebody as a site manager, as a manager, or as an owner, as long as that account itself has been tagged by Google. So we actually had a case with a franchise we were working with, and the rep actually told me, he said, I want you to pull up this one location. And so I pulled it up, and he says, see that account right there with that Yahoo email address? And I said, yeah. He says, don't add that location. It's going to be bad juju. And I said, what? And he says, if you add that, the listing is going to get suspended. I was like, can I get that in writing? He said, no, he wouldn't tell me that. But it was, and it turned out to be an SEO agency that was associated with this listing. So yeah, any level you add that user to, it's gonna cause any location that they're associated with to automatically get suspended. And the only way to get out of it is to actually boot that user off and then file for reinstatement. So when you're looking at account-wide suspensions where they added one bad user to 500 locations and all 500 got suspended, you have to go in there, and it's a painstaking process to click on every location and remove that user.
Yeah, I bet it is. Yeah, certainly not something you want to be messing around with. You burn the relationships with all your clients in one fell swoop.
Yep.
Okay, so very quickly, zooming out to the top, Jason, we have actually kind of answered this question, but it seems like some people didn't maybe get a kind of clear picture. So very quickly, what is the current state with GMB reviews?
So much ambiguity right now. So as we know, Google shut off the ability for all new reviews to be posted on March 20th. They had a statement that said that they had plans on posting reviews, a couple of weeks after that when they updated their COVID-19 link. They ended up taking that down when they started allowing new reviews to be posted. I think they updated the language on April 10th, and that message about reviews that had been posted prior to that being published was removed. Google is slowly rolling out reviews on a category by category basis from what we're seeing. So we've done a lot of testing. I did an unofficial Twitter poll over the weekend asking people, what categories they're seeing. So it definitely is grocery. We're seeing different types of retail businesses. People are saying they're seeing some new reviews trickle in for the healthcare space, for banks. I think we saw one for, plumbers. We're starting to see them for car dealerships. So it's definitely, slowly returning back to normal where new reviews are being posted. But there's some categories that we're not going to see reviews for quite a long time. Like internet marketing, I think is going to be, way down the line. So it does seem like it's going to be a lot of front-facing businesses that customers are going to right now that are getting the reviews, and everybody else is just going to have to be on a sit and wait basis. But yeah, if you can't get reviews, then your competitors can't get reviews. And the best way to find out if you're getting reviews is to daily log in, create a review, log out of Google, check in incognito, see if that review shows up. If that review doesn't show up, you don't have them. And then make sure you delete that review too. Also, another thing that most people don't know and aren't really aware of, if you go in and you actually edit your review, Google's going to actually remove it. So it goes into like that ether of reviews that were posted after the 20th till your reviews got turned on. So I've done countless tests on Google reviews, and so I apologize to a friend of mine, but I edited my review and then it just disappeared into that ether. So he says Google says he has 10 reviews, but he only has 9.
Okay, that is great insight. Thanks, Jason. Let's go next question, which comes from Bellin. It says, what's the best way to report duplicate spam listings? By suggesting an edit directly from apps, I usually don't see that they delete them. we're working for hotel chains. We get a lot of duplicate listings for our hotels. The only way I see that work is when we ask for a merge, but it's hard to send all the cases to G&B support. So I guess what's the best way of dealing with kind of spam listings or duplicate listings? I guess either competitor spam or duplicates kind of crop up for your own business.
Yeah. So the best thing to do. So when it's your own brand, you need to go and claim ownership access to that duplicate listing. So you definitely want to add that listing if you can find it. Hopefully it's so nuanced that it's not going to be, too terrible of an issue trying to add it. If it's the exact same address, then you may run into, slight issues with trying to add it to your G&B listing. If it's a brand, you're only going to get that manager listing. If it's not a brand or chain and you get that own this business, then I would click on it directly from G&B to start the claim process there. Once you're able to get that ownership access and verify your affiliation with it, then kick all the users off and then get that business listing, marked as unverified, contact support and have support go in there and merge the listing so you can get the reviews turned over. If you are reporting, duplicates of competitors, you can do the suggest and edit, but it doesn't really do anything when you're marking it as a duplicate. That case, I would do the redressal form, and try and show them how it's a duplicate, but that also doesn't really work. And then your next best option is to contact support directly to G&B and hope that they can do it. I'd say maybe in a couple more months when, stuff gets back to normal, you can come to the Google My Business forum, and hopefully one of us project experts can, start escalating stuff back up to Google, because right now we can't escalate anything to Google. So we're just giving, here's all the stuff that you should be doing. Here's Google's answers. Here's your best practices. So when you get to a situation where it needs to go directly to a Google, then you can come to the forum. Hopefully, maybe like midsummer, we'll get capabilities to directly communicate with Google and start highlighting these duplicates and get the Google team to go in there and do whatever it is they need to do.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Jason. I hope that's clear for you, Belen. Let me just check
I know
on the upvotes. I think we've been through all the top ones, so let's kind of go down to the next question. Okay, this one comes from Belen again. When Google is basically reviewing a spam report to decide whether it's going to, whether it agrees with the report and it accepts a spam or it denies the kind of edit, what facts does it look at? How does it, and what can I guess you do to give Google enough evidence? And I guess the following question is, does the local guide level affect this in any way?
Yeah, there's no basis to local guides having any, extra weight. It all has to do with whether or not Google actually trusts your account level or not. So if you've done a lot of listings, that you've reported and you get those rejected, once you start getting like a whole slew of rejected edits where they don't, take your data, then it starts having a diminished effect on your account. So it won't matter if you're a level 1 or if you're a level 9. They're still going to let there and go, well, we're not really sure. We trust it, which is really frustrating because there's quite a few, suggested edits that we see that, Google, rejects. And, we're just kind of like, really? This guy put like every single keyword that they want to rank for and 12 cities in their Google My Business name. And we know that's not really the name, but Google won't go there and accept it. Or, we'll report, a fake address that's using a UPS box and Google still will like reject it. So, it's not going to be, what guide level you are. You really truly want to, do the suggested edit for the machine to read it, but then, start hitting, the redressal form. And then what I would do is I would, look and see, okay, well, can you find, any information that says that this business doesn't exist? Like, is there another business at that same address? Does Street View or signage show a completely different business there, then that's the information that I would check. You can also look up the Secretary of State, or if it's like a garage door or a contractor, check and see if they actually have a valid contractor's license. If they don't have that and they're not registered, then I would include links to that documentation as well. And here's the other thing: you can create a whole Google document and link to that Google document with all of your supporting documents. So you don't have to just set it, add it all into that little box. You can just say, I created this document with all my information. I have photos and documentation for you to see, and upload that document with all the information that you want. And then that way Google will go in there and check that document. And then if you really do your due diligence and you can really prove that the business listing is not legit, you're going to have a higher likelihood that listing is going to get taken down than if you were to just say, Google, this is fake, take it down. Then they're going to sit there and go, well, we don't really have anything really, to go off. And you're talking to people. So, the easier you can make it for them, then it's just going to be a slam dunk. But if you got to make them go and do their homework, then then chances are it's going to be rejected.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jason. So look, we've got about, I guess, officially got about 10 minutes left. We are probably kind of halfway down the sort of questions. I know, Jason, you could hang on for the 10 minutes. So should we say another 20 minutes from now? We'll see if we can get through as many of these as possible.
You got it. Yeah. Let's do it.
Fantastic. Okay. Okay, brilliant. Let's move on. So this one comes from Michelle. So it's around kind of GMB primary category. How do we set the GMB primary category when we offer services in multiple categories? We have kind of touched upon that in terms of how you might kind of vary it sort of seasonality wise. How would you do it if there's no seasonality to the services?
Yeah, if this is the one that I'm thinking where they were like a handyman and doing pool cleaning and landscaping, then you're going to run into a lot of issues because those categories are not related at all. And so when you're trying to, and it's not going to be the same as, setting up, a listing for a lawyer where you're going to set your main category as, let's say it's personal injury attorney, and then you set your secondaries as lawyer and law firm, right? Those are going to be directly related. When you're trying to do painter, handyman, landscaper, pool cleaning, construction, well, those are going to be such different categories as the way that Google sees them. So that they're not going to, allow you to rank for each and every single one. And again, this is where you're going to want to make sure that if they are really truly separate businesses and services, then go through and try to get them, registered, with your LLC. But, you're going to want to have, you're going to want to make sure that you dot your I's, cross your T's, and it's going to be a little bit more nuanced depending on how you're setting up those listings. So, if you want, you can, post more information later, but because it's a little difficult when, it's like, well, I just got, location A, and, it really helps when you can actually see the business name, address, and then kind of get, more specifics as to what's going to give like a better probability of whether it's going to be accepted or not.
She just going to say that the way they got around it in terms of they weren't getting any visibility for the other kind of categories is they ended up creating additional GMB listings as SABs using the home addresses of the technicians, which I guess is a shortcutting way of kind of getting those listings up. But they're still not getting visibility. It sounds like they all got approved, the listings, but no visibility.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this was that one where if you're doing SABs at, your technicians' locations, you're going to be running into a lot of issues where Google's going to come in and ends up suspending those listings because they're not in spec. So you're only allowed to have one SAB per state that you're registered in. So if they're not registered, they're going to be running into issues. And this is going to be one of those cases where you're definitely going to want to have a brick and mortar office. So that's going to be my best bet is get an office, get it set up, get it registered, run everything legit through there. But trying to run the multiple SABs with different business names and categories, it's just a recipe for failure. And Google's going to come in and clean house and end up suspending them eventually.
Yeah. So I guess it's how long you're prepared to kind of sort of stomach that risk, and when the kind of consequences kind of might kind of catch up with your actions. Okay, I hope that's giving you some additional sort of advice there, Michelle. Next question down comes from Tricia. She says, having trouble verifying an account I just started working with. The business in the home and healthcare field, and the verify call, text, email aren't coming through. I prefer to do it faster than postcard because of the industry. Should I change it to SAB before asking for the postcard to verify? I'm worried about it getting suspended right now with limited Google support. After verification, I was going to change to SAB, but wondered if I should do that first. It's home healthcare, so I guess they're kind of going out and providing the service at someone's home. But now that they set it up as a physical business, but not getting the verification routes through. How would you handle that?
Well, I would start all over from scratch, or I would hide your address, because if you're supposed to be an SAB, then you need to hide your address. Like that's gonna cause a lot of issues with Google, especially if you're trying to remove an address. So let's say you get verified. So right now, with the verification processes, you can be verified, and then your listing's going to go into pending review, and then it's got to be reviewed, right? So Google's going to sit there and they're going to look at that, and they're going to go, oh, well, this is a regular, this is supposed to be an SAB, and they'll say it's a residential address, so they're not going to approve it. They'll just end up suspending the listing. So then you got to apply for reinstatement after you change your address. Ultimately, what you should do is you should make sure that your Google My Business listing is exactly the way that you want it to be, and then request that PIN postcard. So if you're thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to set it up real quick, get the PIN postcard, and then go in and do edits, while I'm waiting for that. Well, every time you go and you do an edit on a listing that has not been verified, it's going to make that PIN postcard null and void. So they're going to want to send you like another verification code. And then if you do get verified and you go in and you change a bunch of stuff after, or you start adding stuff, you run the risk of your edits going into another pending review status, which could take weeks to clear once you get verified. Or if you make too many edits and changes, it could cause your listing to get suspended. So honestly, set it up the correct way that you want. Make sure that you've got it exactly as you want it, and then request your PIN postcard. That's the easiest thing to do. I'm kind of curious why they're not getting PIN postcards. I mean, I know there is a slight delay, but as far as we're aware, they're still working. And after 14 days, again, if you have not gotten your PIN postcard, then there's that verification link that you can click on, where Google will, provide you with more resources in getting verified. Okay,
great. And Tristan's added some comments, so that's so she's got hopefully an answer that she can proceed with, which is great. So thanks, Jake. That's brilliant. Next question comes from William Gibbs. Because on G&B, I had my business marked as temporarily closed, but I did not flag it as closed, as I'm currently open. So I guess it sounds someone had marked his business closed, but it wasn't him. So who has the ability to mark a business as temporarily closed?
Google. Predominantly, that was Google. Using their resources. Because here's the thing. It's not our business, it's Google's platform. So Google's got, complete utter control over how it's ran and managed. So when COVID hit, they started going in and started marking a bunch of businesses. We saw it initially, I think, in Italy, with a bunch of restaurants getting marked as temporarily closed. So, Google's trying to make sure that, double-edged swords. They were trying to make sure that their data was actually accurate on Google, so that way people weren't going to go and show up to businesses that were actually closed when they weren't. We've seen a few cases where people were leaving negative reviews because the business was closed when they were marked as open. So there's always those types of issues. So Google definitely was pulling information from local governments that we know of. So let's say, California had like that lockdown order. So then Google went in and started, marking a bunch of businesses temporarily closed. So you couldn't really, get that switched. And then a couple weeks later, Google added that new feature in GMB where you can actually mark your business listing as temporarily closed, or you can mark your business listing as open. So what you want to do is you want to go to business.google.com, go into that dashboard, pull up that location as long as you have access to it, click on your info tab, and all the way on your right-hand side, there's the boxes. Reopen your location, mark as temporarily closed, mark as permanently closed, or remove location. So you want to go in there and make sure that you mark your business listing as open. And then if there is an issue, then you definitely want to contact Google My Business Support. We are seeing a major uptick in the last few days of businesses that are claiming that they can't reopen their business listing. So it could be one of those nuances where Google ultimately has bad data or they put data in place that users can't override, which we see a lot of.
Okay, fine. So you would hope and suspect that business owners can alter that using the changing of the setting within the info tab, but it's not a guarantee because you're seeing some evidence that actually Google is overriding that or not allowing businesses to take control. Okay, great. Next question is a sort of spam sort of follow-up question, which is I think we probably answered that in terms of how Google deals with sort of spam reports. So I want to sort of skip over that one and come to a question from Eric. Says, do you have any suggestions about Google automatically updating several GMB listings based on user suggestions? I've looked at several over time and find they've been changed, either the primary category or other things. And is there a way to stop this? Actually, I guess it'd be a question from that. There are some services out there, third-party services, that claim to be able to suppress edits or to stop kind of edits kind of going through. But what would your answer for Eric be?
Yeah, there is no way that you're ever going to truly, legitimately stop edits. Google has, allowed Google My Business to, be acceptable to suggest an edit. So I can go in there and I can suggest as many edits as I want to a business. Whether they're legitimate or not, is going to remain to be seen. But, but if I truly do find information out there on Google that is, incorrect, they've marked a business listing as closed when I know that they're really truly open, and I can prove it and update their hours, then Google's going to sit there and and take that data and review it. So again, we have to think of it as Google owns that listing, so they get to call the shots. You may run into issues where, and we've had this happen, where Google actually just has bad data associated with a listing. And so, as you go in there and you make your edits, well, they keep coming back and they're like, well, we think that you're supposed to have a handicapped accessible elevator. And we're like, it's a single story building. There's no 2 stories. So we don't have an elevator. And in those cases, you have to go to Google support and say, look, you guys keep trying to, put in this attribute, and that attribute doesn't apply to us because we're a single story, or they've got, the wrong category, somewhere. So it could be, a Google database issue, or it could be something where, truly legitimately you have, other data sources out there that are conflicting with what you've got. And so that's where you want to go through and do a citation audit, and this is the reason why you would, potentially want, review, citation management cleanup services, is to make sure that all your citations are all stating the exact same thing. Or it could just be, somebody that, is trying to, suggest an edit because they think they know better than the business. But yeah, those services that sit there and say, well, we can, monitor and do a block. Well, you can't stop the suggested edit. All you can do is just accept it or deny it or override it. So you're never going to have, we're never going to have complete control over GMB because we don't own that platform. So it's always going to be set by Google's controls, and they're going to allow us what we can and can't do with it, if that makes any sense.
It does. And to clarify something for me, because I don't kind of jump into kind of GMB sort of that often, you as a business owner, you can accept, deny, and is it override, or is that, what's the difference between override and deny?
Well, okay, so right, so you can accept or reject directly in your GMB dashboard. But when I say override, there's those programs out there where it'll make sure that your data just gets overridden. So say you're using like a Yext. So every time you make an update in your Yext dashboard, it pushes everything out and overrides everything that doesn't match that location.
Does Google see data coming from those kind of API sources differently to data updated in the dashboard?
Yes and no. So there's always going to be differences with your account. So I get asked this question a lot, like how Yext works, and so when you set up Yext, you have to associate it with your Google My Business account that you've created, your account that you're registered with, right? So let's say I said Jason at BrightLocal or Myles at BrightLocal. So when I sync my Yext location with GMB, it's going to ask me to pick which account do I want to use. So I want to use the Myles at BrightLocal or the Jason at BrightLocal. Mm-hmm. So all that data is going to be being pushed through that level, that user level, right? So it's not going to be, okay, well, I'm going to be adding a Yext account to all those listings, right? They don't actually do that. So Google's going to look at the data that's coming through, and it's going to look at that account. So if you're a bulk verified account, then you're going to usually run into no issues with your data being, as accepted. If you are, an agency, or you've got like a handful of locations, well, they're going to, or depending on the category, there's going to be different levels of trustingness that they're going to apply to whatever those edits and updates are. So like right now we know like our updates go through no problems. If you're trying to change categories, then it's going to create some red flags. So yeah, that kind of helps. I mean, it's not a one size fits all.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see if we can tackle a couple more kind of questions. So okay, so here's a question that says, I have a competitor, uses their location from an unrelated bar business in the center of town. On their GMB, they've hidden their address, but they still show their address on their website. Can I report them? So here's it. I think it's they're assuming, they're basically saying they're located in one place, which is, I guess, the map is over this bar. They are actually hiding their address, but that's actually not an address that they're kind of related to. But they're showing their real address on the website. Can you report them for this? Is that a violation?
Yes, you could definitely report them for doing that, because of the fact that they are they do have that information. So just because their address is hidden doesn't mean Google can't see it. So if you were to use the redressal, and and I ended up helping Amy Toman with a few of these questions. We had a business that was using an airport for their GMB and hiding their address. So we went to Google, like, hey, you need to take a look at this address. I know they're hiding it, but here's where they're really registered. We could tell by where the map pin was, and this was back in the days where you could actually get more nuance, where you can actually see where the business was actually registered. There was some workarounds that used to work that don't work as well. But yeah, so we went, reported it to Google. Google went and looked. They looked at the address where the business was located and realized that, yeah, they were, spoofing their address and, trying to create a listing where they weren't really truly located. Ended up going and suspending it. Person got their business listing back. We went back and, re-reported it, and Google took it out. I can't remember what exactly ended up happening after the fact, but yeah, there was that, Google is going to go and check. So if you use a PO box and you hide your address, Google's going to see it, and they're going to go in, and they're going to, when they get that documentation, they'll go and they'll look and they'll see. And look, Google can see a whole lot more data than we can see with just the plain eye. So, yes, report if you think it's a questionable listing, just report it. Let Google ultimately decide. But I would add a link to the bar where that they're located at, their GMB listing, and say, look, this is the address that they got on their website. This is what's really there, and they're hiding their address. Please verify that this is legitimate address and it belongs there. and I have like a spreadsheet. So, for all the reporting that I do, so I'll put the date, the case ID, the business name, the CID, and then what type of spam it is. Is it a residential, PO box, spam, lead gen? And then I'll have, a link to, if I had to create like a Google Doc, say there's like 27, carpet cleaning businesses that I reported. Well, then I would have a link directly to that Google document. So that way, when I go back, towards the end of 2019, I would go back and I would check those listings 3 weeks later and check the status and be like, okay, Google removed, 17 of the 33 listings that I reported. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to, give Google, the remaining 16 that they missed, and wait for them to go and clean it up. So, always make sure that you're tracking all the spam that you're fighting. So that way you have a document, you have it documented where you've, reported it. And after, and when things get back to normal and, if you're not seeing that listing is removed after 3 weeks, then that's where you can follow up with social support. I use Twitter because I think Twitter is better than Facebook. The GMB Facebook support is just kind of like a hit and miss, but Twitter, you'll definitely get, a response back within a few days. And I know Carrie, really loves the GMB Twitter replies.
Do you, brilliant amounts of information. I'm just going to roll on with a couple more kind of follow-on questions. Do you have a template for spam fighting? Is that something you can share? Or is that kind of tracker sheet something that you're happy to maybe kind of share with our audience so that they can use that as their templates?
Yeah, I can definitely make my tracking template available for anybody that wants it. I'll give it to you guys after the fact, because I created a demo just for people to look at.
Okay, brilliant. I'll get Jamie and Steph maybe to kind of add that to the write-up for this, Jason. That would be fantastically helpful. Another question which sort of follows on is like, how aggressive should people be with following up with Google support right now, given the backlog, given the kind of problems? Should they just keep knocking on the door every 2 days, or actually, do they just need to back off and accept that there are delays?
Yeah, just back off. In all honesty, all you're going to do is just make yourself crazy with contacting somebody that's not gonna, get you back. Think of it as a breakup, right? Like if you that person broke up, leave them alone, right? Don't be like, hey, take me back, every other day. You're just gonna make yourself sick. It's the best analogy I can come up with. But in all honesty, sorry, Myles. But in all honesty. Focus on tactics that are working right now, right? Like, okay, GMB, there's a lot of issues with it, but there's other things we can do. We can do social media, we can do search engine media buys, you can do PPC, you can do email marketing. There's like so many different things that we can do other than GMB. And I know GMB is like, the big gorilla in the room, but just because one feature isn't working doesn't mean that we should just, sit there and shake our fists. It's like, well, we got to pivot. Like, we're marketers, right? Google's going to give and Google's going to take away. We had Google Plus, Google took that away. Like, we should be used to Google giving and taking away by now. If you've been in SEO for any length of time, that what we see one day is not going to be here 2 years from now. And so we have to do as best as possible to pivot.
Okay, we're going to answer one final question. Before that, I'm just going to have a quick plug for next week's clinic. Which I'm joined by Phil Rozek, who runs Local Visibility System. We're talking all about reputation management and obviously, how that kind of relates in kind of today's environment and world. And it's going to happen next Wednesday. It's going to be a couple of hours later due to some sort of time zone sort of management. So please join us with Phil and I next week. You can see the little kind of sign up button down there. There's a link. Great to see as many of you there as possible. The timing is slightly different next week. I'm going to have a real nightmare managing my kind of family around that kind of time. I can't send them out to a restaurant to get food. So anyway, hopefully it'll be just me. May well see all of my beautiful family. So final question, Jason, before we let you get back to helping all your kind of clients solve their myriad of sort of problems. And this one comes from From Zane. If you have an established business that's moving to a new location in the same city, is it better to change the address on the existing listing or mark that one as permanently closed and create a new listing with a new address?
So typically what you want to do is just update your address and get it moved. But with that being said, we are noticing there's a lot of issues right now where businesses are moving and their information is not being updated right now. Same with trying to get verified. So Google support is going to tell you that you're supposed to just move your address, and it's the best because you have that history and longevity of your listing. So yes, do that and cross fingers and hope like heck that you don't get suspended, or that you don't run into that verification issue where Google wants you to verify and then they're trying to send that PIN postcard verification to your old address, which we're also seeing. So yeah, ultimately when things are working and Google is not under fire as they are right now, you're supposed to move your address. And just be fine. And it's not going to have any negative impacts on your rankings. And if that doesn't work, then yeah, you've got to contact support and work with them and get them to assist you. But right now it is really it's difficult for everybody, and I feel bad for everybody because Google is just not working and responding the way that we're used to. So it's just one of those things where you just kind of have to have a little bit more grace and patience. I know I don't always have grace and patience. If anybody follows me on Twitter, they know that I like to rant. But I mean, ultimately, it's like Google's got to fix their issues right now and make it easier for people to embrace and use their systems right now. And so they've really made it difficult for us. So that helps.
Fair enough. That helps a huge amount. So, Jace, thanks. We've run over by a good sort of 50 minutes. You've been amazing. The amount of detail. You've not put a foot wrong. You've not stumbled. You've not been able to answer any kind of questions. So, not that I would expect anything else, if I'm really kind of honest. But that was great. I learned a ton. I was really absorbed through much of that. I found it quite hard to focus on the next question for being kind of so absorbed. So.